All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a good lunch, and I know it was a bit of a long one, but thank you for that. Appreciate it. And welcome to the afternoon session of Media Career Day 2018. And again, just as a reminder, if you wished all the photos that you take today, things you tweet out, Instagram, Snap, whatever, please add the hashtag Media Career Day 2018. I hope everybody enjoyed the morning session, and I hope everybody sort of got an idea that the goal of today is to take the narrative that a career in media is an impossibility, a long shot, and to turn that upside down. And I know that our morning panelists all talked about how content is king, and there's never been more opportunities to get involved in this type of a career pathway than ever before. And our afternoon panelists are certainly going to add to that. And again, the skills we learn in broadcasting and media production, as you all know, make each of us more hireable, help take us anywhere we want to go. And just like in the morning, our afternoon guests have been to some pretty amazing places in their professional careers. So I welcome all of you again to sit back, listen, ask questions, and absorb the knowledge that these four individuals are about to provide.
For 20 plus years, the lifestyle and caller-driven show known as Eric in the Morning with Melissa and Whit has dominated Chicago morning radio. A six-time recipient of the NAB Crystal Award for excellence in community service. Having raised over $29 million for Lurie Children's Hospital in 19 years. Induction in the Radio Hall of Fame. When brands want to own Chicago, they look to Eric in the Morning on the Mix.
Hey, it's Eric from the Eric in the Morning Show on the Mix. We cannot say enough about our great partnership with T-Mobile. We love sharing America's best unlimited network with our listeners every morning, and we're looking forward to a great 2019.
Power 92.3, Terrence Palmer here. Murder happens every day in Chicago. And when it happens outside of the city, that's when it makes national news.
So you were outside that morning. Must have heard the gunshot pretty loud and clear.
Boom. You've got this Ryan Suttermill kid dead.
Yeah.
Millions.
I know what I need to do, and that's prove he didn't do this.
You think I'm a murderer? I know the sound of a gun. A gunshot here. It's about as foreign a sound as you can get.
PNC proudly presents NCAA men's basketball between the Loyola Ramblers and the UIC Flames. Welcome to the Gentile Arena on the campus of Loyola University in Chicago. I'm Andy Mazer, along with my broadcast partner, Jeff Dickerson. About to see this in-city rivalry. These two teams used to share a conference affiliation with the Horizon League, but of course, Loyola has moved on to the Missouri Valley Conference, and I guess you kind of throw out the records when these two teams get together.
Well, these teams they know each other so well, Andy.
The IDOT Minutemen put their life on the line every day out working in traffic. But now there's a new set of dangers they have to deal with. Because of the rain, we've had downed tree limbs, we've had downed wires, power outages, and of course, once the president's motorcade gets underway, there'll be rolling closures along the Kennedy Expressway. Already a very heavy police presence as they prepare for that. Now, earlier this afternoon, closures around McCormick Place have gone into...
This time I'm going to introduce our afternoon panelists. I just ask that you guys kind of sit to my right here as I introduce you. It's my pleasure to introduce first, for over 20 years, he's been the host of Eric in the Morning with Melissa and Whip on 101.9 The Mix. Please welcome radio announcer, Mr. Eric Ferguson. Our next guest is a screenwriter, producer, and director, and his debut feature film, Canal Street, will be opening in over 1,000 theaters nationwide in January of 2019. Please welcome Maine East alum Ryan Lamar. This next radio and television announcer does play-by-play, for both basketball and baseball, and he's the current voice of the Chicago White Sox pre- and post-game show on WGN Radio AM 720. Please welcome Maine East alum Andy Mazer. And finally, we are pleased to be joined by multiple Emmy Award-winning television news and traffic reporter for ABC Channel 7, Maine East alum Roz Varon. Again, thank you all. So, how I would like to start this afternoon is I'd like to hear from each of you about sort of your stories and kind of start kind of in the order I introduced you. But what the students would really like to know is what was your pathway from, I guess, high school all the way until where you are today. Tell us kind of that story if you can. And I think the main takeaway that the students want to know is you can put yourself back in high school and think about who you were then as to who you are now. What would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself to do differently, or what would you wish to study more? So I guess that's kind of how we'll start off today. So
Want me to go?
one at a time. Yep.
I already feel out of place. I'm the only guy that didn't go to Maine East up here. So I don't know how that happened. I went to high school in a little tiny farm school far west from here. Roz was just there the other day, and we were talking about it. And I knew at that time, even going to school then, that I wanted to chase a career in broadcasting or in media to some degree. I didn't know specifically what, but I knew that that's where my passion was set. And ended up going to college at the University of Iowa, and had thought at that time that I should get into something that was more traditional, and had myself convinced of that, but still had that continuing gnawing feeling that I belonged more in a field that was more fine arts driven. And thought I was going to go to law school, and got an opportunity my senior year at the University of Iowa to do some radio, and did it because I grew up here in Chicago, and radio was such a big influence on my life growing up here in Chicago. It was something that I felt like, all right, well, if I'm ever going to try it, it's going to be now. And it ended up being something that took over my life, and I deferred law school for a year, and my dad almost had a heart attack when it happened, and he finally has come to terms with it recently that I'm still not going to go back to law school. But I chased my dream, and I was just telling some of the folks in the back that I'm a big believer in that if you're a student of this age and you already have an idea of what's important to you in life, don't let anybody tell you that it's not. I have two kids. I have twins that are seniors in high school now, and are both looking at getting into performing arts and communications and that kind of thing. And I'm a champion of their cause, and I'm a champion of the field and the industry, and a true believer that if that's where your passion is, you should always chase your passion, because people who do that, it pays off for you in the end.
I have to follow that. All right.
That's all I have. That's it. I'm going to run now. So.
How you all doing today? Everybody awake? Man, these things always make you feel. I feel like I just graduated. I graduated in 2002. I'm not that old, but the thing that I learned at this school was I wish I could have done it again. I would have listened to my math teachers more, because now I do math every day. I was a horrible math student here, but I was only horrible because I didn't apply myself. That was the biggest thing. I didn't apply myself. Graduated in 2002, moved out to LA with no money. Knocked on doors for about 5 or 6 years. I went to Columbia College, but I will tell you right now that I learned most of everything that I still hold with me today, technically, at this school. Mr. Wunderlich, Mr. Barnett, Mr. Hessert. I learned how to, yes sir, that man taught me how to write, real talk. That's 100% the truth. Those were the teachers that when I was not listening in class, I didn't have my cell phone, but I see people on their cell phones. I didn't have my cell phone at the time, but I wasn't paying attention. Those were the ones that kind of grabbed me and woke me up in ways that I still think of to the day. I ended up working with people that I could only have dreamt of working with out in Hollywood, and moved up the ranks pretty quickly. a little bit too quickly because when I was 23, 24, I lost everything just because I wasn't listening, wasn't paying attention. Made a lot of money too fast, blew everything too fast, and had to spend about the next 5, 6 years climbing back up. And when I got back up to where I am right now, it was a lot of learned lessons that I had learned along the way. Currently working on movies and television, but I started right here where you are, listening to people like this talk to me. And, you know, I always take these moments right here to make sure that you communicate, you network, you ask the questions that you want to know, because we're here to tell you, we're here to talk about our experiences. And I honestly can say that if it hadn't been for this school, I probably would not be where I am today. And that is like the realest thing that I could say. I learned 95% of everything that I do from a technological standpoint here, in these walls, under this roof. So I don't know if that was long-winded. I don't know if that worked, but that's who I am. My name is Ryan Lamar. Thank you.
I have to echo some of the things that Ryan said, because I'm class of '85, and we didn't have all the little bells and whistles you guys have right now. It was 3/4-inch tape, which we saw a whole bunch of with Mr. Wonderlick today on a little tour of the radio station and the TV station. And the thing I want to echo is the fact that I learned more here than I did. I went to Bradley University before it was had a global communication school. So if you happen to be going there, you're welcome. I paid for that. But it's a great thing. I mean, it's a great thing to be here and have the working knowledge and the working ability while you're here in high school, to be able to be that far ahead of people that you are when you get to the same college together. I mean, I was doing play-by-play in the field house of Maney's basketball, and we did the first simulcast between the radio station, which back then was at 88.5, and channel 82 on cable. And we strung cable down the hallways. And it was practical knowledge that I didn't realize I was getting at the time, but now I do. And I didn't realize at the time that my teachers were being a little difficult on me because they wanted me to succeed. Back then, I was a hot-headed 16, 17-year-old kid that didn't really understand exactly what was going on. So take advantage of the fact that you have people here that care about you, and that you're in an industry, or trying to get into an industry here that's ever-changing. Now, my path was crazy. I'm a sports guy now, but I started out as a top 40 DJ in Peoria. I did whatever I could to get on the radio, and that's kind of my advice to you is, even if you want to do sports, get on the radio, get on the air. Have something that you can have as a demo so that your next boss can actually hear you and hear what you sound like. So I didn't really know that I was going to get into top 40, but I did, and I was in it for about 5 or 6 years. I decided to come back to Chicago, and I went into a place that did news, traffic, and sports for Chicago stations. As a matter of fact, I did traffic with Eric on Eric's show back in the late 90s. And then
Greatest year of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. And I was bothering the sports director at the place I was working, a guy by the name of Jeff Joniak, who now does the Bears play-by-play. And he would challenge me. He said, "I want to hear a tape from you," because he hadn't heard me done sports. And he said, give me a tape a week. So I decided to give him 2 tapes a day to see how quickly he could keep up with my ambition. And it turned out that I got to do some sports on the weekends on WBBM, and then the old WMAQ, which was at 670 at the time. I went to a national sports network. I was doing updates. And then I got my big break, was with WGN Radio in 1999. I got hired to do Cubs pre and post game. I ended up doing some play-by-play during that time as well, which I parlayed into a job with the San Diego Padres. I was out there for about 7 years doing radio and TV. Now, the downside of this industry is that you're at the mercy of people that hire you. And when the people that hire you leave, it's kind of a roll of the dice. And I'm kind of in the same situation that Ryan was in. I found myself without a job in 2014, came back to my hometown thinking I would be able to get back to some of the places that I worked before, because you have to get into a job and leave a job with class. You want to leave a good impression. You don't want to burn any bridges. I'm sure you have heard that term before. So I was lucky enough to go back to WGN. And thankfully, I stayed there, because now I'm getting an opportunity to get back into baseball, which is something that I really like. I really feel like I'm sitting up here because I couldn't hit a curveball. I wanted to be a baseball player my entire life, and I figured I better do something to get myself involved with the sport. and now I'm doing pregame for the Chicago White Sox. And it's kind of a full circle kind of thing. But again, if I had to go back and shake myself as a high school student, it would be to take more advantage, like Ryan was saying, of the opportunities that you have here right in front of you, whether it be at Maine East, Maine West, or Maine South. You have the same opportunities, and you should take advantage of those things. The other thing I would think of to tell you is that I wish I'd known then what a commitment it took, because you can't slack off. If you want to get into this, you got to work your rear end off, not only to get there, but then you have to work even that much harder to stay. So it's a never-ending process, and kind of what Eric said, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. I had so many people tell me, what are you going to do as a backup? What are you going to do as a backup? I'm like, I'm not going to fail. I had that determination. I had that thing inside my heart that told me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing for a living. And I followed it, and I followed that dream like Eric was telling you. There are going to be people along the way that tell you that you have no shot, that you have no chance. Just look at them, shake their hand, say, okay, thank you very much. And you know, when you get a chance to get back to them, you know, when you're a big-time radio star or a big-time TV star, they'll be looking at, hey, I think I told that guy that he couldn't make it. So just follow that, and appreciate what you have here. I know it's kind of hard to say when you're actually in the fight right now, and you're hoping to graduate and go to a good college, but appreciate what you have here. I think that's the message I'd like to leave you with.
So it is very surreal when I come back here, because I graduated in 1975. Yes, I'm Jurassic. And none of this stuff was here. They didn't have a TV department. They barely had a radio department. I was very involved in theater when I was here. And I don't know if any of you guys saw what I've been posting on social media. Anybody following me on social media? Because I just posted it yesterday because I've been a little bit busy. But I posted my graduation picture on Facebook, and then I said, follow me on Instagram, and you can see where I painted my name in this school, secret location. And if you can guess what that location is after this presentation, the first 5 people who tell me get a prize. Okay, I'm done promoting myself. But seriously, and I checked with all of the teachers here, and they said, yes, your name is still there, which is so awesome, since I graduated so long ago. I was very involved in theater. Sitting up here on this stage is just mind-blowing to me, because I was your age when I was up here last. And I went to Western Illinois University because all of my friends here went to Western Illinois University, and I majored in theater. And then when I got there, thinking that I was hot stuff, and then I saw all the people who were the best at what they did from all the other schools were hot stuff, I wasn't really hot stuff. I was pretty bad. I was not as good as I thought I was. And I decided to switch majors. I really love performing. And they had a carrier current radio station in the dorms. And I used to listen to it all the time. And I thought the kids who worked there were cool. And I thought, well, maybe I should go into radio broadcasting, because it's still performing, probably more of a stable job than theater. Not really. But little did I know. So I did that, and I did radio there for a little bit. And then some people were saying, hey, there's this really cool college in Chicago called Columbia College, and they've got this great radio department where the teachers are all working professionals. And here, you know, I'm from Chicago, I go away, and I'm like, oh man, I got to go back to Chicago to go to school if I'm going to go to this great school. So I did. I transferred to Columbia, and all I did there, I was there for 1.5 years, and I did all my basic curric while I was at Western, got that all out of the way, all my gen ed, and I got really focused. And all I did was radio when I was at Columbia. And I was taking 20 credit hours, I had an internship and a part-time job, and I still had a 4.0 that semester. Yeah. I mean, you'll see this is a common thread with all of us. You really have to be, you know, it just clicks. Something just clicks, and all of a sudden it's like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to make this happen. So then the next thing was, after graduating from college, sending out all my resumes. And everybody's like, well, you have to go to a small market and then come back to Chicago. And I'm like, why? I don't want to do that. Bob Surratt didn't have to do that. You guys know who Bob Surratt is? I know you guys know who Bob Surratt is. Okay, I mean, there were people here who were big-time DJs in Chicago who did not leave and come back. So I said, if they didn't have to do it, I don't want to do it. So I had like a part-time radio job at WXLC in Waukegan, and I lived in Niles, obviously, and I had one shift, and it was, oh my God, it was terrible. It was like 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. Saturday overnight. It was awful, and I would fall asleep driving home. It was terrible, but I did it, and it was enough to get me something that I could put on an air check. And then in December of the year I graduated, I found out that there was a traffic service, and they were hiring people, and you didn't have to know traffic. You just had to have a good air check, a radio air check, and have a good radio voice. So I applied, and they hired me. So 6 months out of graduation, I had a full-time radio job in Chicago, on the air in Chicago, and less than a year after I worked at this traffic service, they put me on the air at WLS AM with Larry Lujak in the morning and Tommy Edwards in the afternoon, which you guys may or may not know, but you guys know how intimidating that had to be for me. Big time, because Larry Lujak, super jock, I mean, to be on the air with this guy who I listened to when I was a kid, I'd get choked up on the air. I'd get nervous, and I couldn't talk. But he really was a very, very kind man, and he invited me to come over to the station because we were in a remote location doing traffic, and they were in, a different building. So he'd say, come over anytime. And he would talk to me, and he'd sit there, and he'd smoke his Benson and Hedges 100s, and as one was going out, he'd like the next one. I mean, this guy was crazy. But he was a good mentor, and he really gave me the confidence I needed to continue with my career. So I did traffic in Chicago until 1989. I found out that Channel 7 was starting a morning newscast, and they wanted to incorporate traffic. And traffic had not been done in TV news, only in radio. It had been done in radio for years, decades, but never in television. So everybody who auditioned for this job came from radio, and none of us knew what the heck we were doing. If you guys want to see something really cool, if you follow me on Instagram, because I posted it there at Roz Barron ABC7, if you follow me on Instagram, you can see my audition tape. It's really fuzzy and crazy, but it's there. I still have it. It was talking about 3/4 inch, U-matic. That's what this was on, right? Okay, but I found it, and what I had to do was make a cardboard map, and I stood next to it, stiff as a board, and I'm pointing to it, and then we put like these really crazy antiquated graphics in, little flashing arrows and stuff. It's so funny. And I submitted that, and they called me in for an audition. I sat there on the set, in the studio, cameras, lights, and they're like, okay, just like do a traffic report. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, this is where Linda Yu sits. This is where John Drury sits. What the hell am I doing here? I froze. I was like a deer in headlights, right? So they didn't hire me. And then I went home and had a pity party. And when I was done with that, I said, wait a minute, who is my competition here? All these other people came from radio, and they were just as terrible and nervous as I was. My only competition is me. So I went back to Columbia College because the department chair there, you guys remember Al Parker? Does that name ring a bell for you? He was the booth announcer at Channel 7, late 80s, early 90s. Anyway, you guys have no clue what I'm talking about. Booth announcers are people that do the station ID. They used to do that live. There was somebody in a booth who would say, ABC 7, Channel 7, 3 o'clock, whatever. They would do that. But now it's all recorded. And from remote places. They can be out in LA, and they can send you the voice tracks, and they just air them. So things have changed quite a bit. But anyway, he was the department chair at Columbia in radio. And I went back to him and said, Al, I need to put together a tape, and I know what they're looking for. Can you help me? So he put me in touch with a production company from students from Columbia. I mean, I'm talking more about Columbia than Maine East, but you have to understand it goes in segments. Everything I learned at Maine East gave me the basics to go to Columbia and act upon that and have the confidence to act upon that. And I went to this production company. They helped me make this tape. I stood over an expressway and did a traffic report, and we supered travel times underneath. And I went back and I gave it to the general manager, and I said, hey, look, I know that this was not my best showing, but I promise you, I can learn to do this as quick as anybody that you have there. And I know Chicago, I'm from Chicago, I know traffic, so you need to hire me. And they did. I got the phone call. I was working at WFYR, which is KISS, FM now 103.5. But I was working there, and I get this phone call in the afternoon. It's Joe Ahern from Channel 7, and he says to me, be careful what you wish for. It may come true. I'm offering you a job. And I've been there ever since. It'll be 30 years in March I've been there. What I would tell my younger self is to be persistent, continue to be persistent. Don't let people say you're not going to make it, because my parents would say, why are you majoring in theater? You're not going to make it. Why are you going into radio? You're not going to make it. Really, my parents. I'm like, you're my parents? Of course, they're very proud of me now, and I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, but they were afraid I would not be able to get a job. But you have to follow your passion, right? You have to. And then have a backup plan. I'm done.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to invite my colleagues up on stage from Maine South High School, Mr. Mason Strom from Maine West High School, Ms. Rebecca Orr. Thank you, thank you. And much like we did in the morning, what we're going to do next, all of the students in here, at least those that are in the broadcasting program, we worked pretty hard earlier in the week to generate questions for each of you. And we'll do a more informal Q&A session later, but we have some questions on note cards, and so we're just going to kind of go round robin here, and we'll have a different question read out to you. And you know, this is very informal, so if there's a question that you think you can add some input to, 'cause some are specifically addressed to certain panelists, but you know, you guys are all kind of in the same boat in a lot of ways, so if you have things to add to it, please do. We'll start with Mr. Strom.
Hi, this question is for everyone, and several students submitted this question. They want to know how social media has altered your career or had an effect on your career.
Obviously, it goes without saying, it has become an incredibly important part in everything that we do, and I'm certain you guys as well, everything that you do, much beyond anything we could have ever imagined, and I'm certain there's a little part of me that believes we're still even in the infancy trying to figure out what direction we're going to take it from here. We on our show, use social media heavily, not only to promote, but also from a content perspective during the show, and from a promotional aspect after the show. We have a full-time social media person, and her only job is to be there and run all of our social media platforms during the show, and then to continue to monitor that throughout the day. She checks in with me each night on different things that have been happening and different things that have been going on. But I think, you know, if that's something you're interested in, the whole world is sitting in front of you with a plethora of possibilities about what you can do with it that I couldn't even begin to fathom, because I wouldn't have even seen it getting to the point that it's at now, so I'm certain I don't have the vision to try to figure out where it's going to end up. And it's definitely a young person's game. There's no doubt about it, with the exception of Roz, who's actually killing it, obviously, on social media.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, there you go. But I truly believe that if that is something that you enjoy, something that you're good at, something that you have a passion for, that there's endless possibilities on where you can take that, and there are so many different media outlets that are looking for guidance, that just don't know where to take it and need people to get them to those spots.
Yeah, I mean, I use social media more for information. You know, when I'm doing on a pregame show, I'm trying to follow the appropriate people. Like in my industry, I'm following a lot of baseball writers, and I'm looking for the little blue check mark, so I know that's actually their account and not bringing up some information that is not current and not relevant and not accurate, to be honest with you. So I use it a lot in that respect, but it's a lot of promotion too, because I'll let people know when the pregame show starts, what we're going to talk about that day, because that's the best way to get that message out for us. I mean, as far as from what I do, the only thing that I would caution people about with social media is the old think before you tweet kind of thing. It follows you around. There's a lot of pro athletes that have found that out the hard way. Even when they were 16 or 17 and they were tweeting some things, it came back to bite them when they were 23 or 24. They've had to go back and apologize for things that they have done here. So it's a different world. I mean, we never had to worry about that kind of thing. But you know, you guys are in a situation now where got to be really, really, really careful about what you put on social media that doesn't come back to haunt you. And hopefully that's not going to be the case for anybody in this room.
Does anybody know who King Batch is? Daystorm Power? Leanne V? So in 2002, went to Columbia, like I said, moved out to LA in 05. Everybody remembered Vine and everything. So my friends, Batch, Storm, Leanne, Don Benjamin, these people, at the time they were actors moving out to LA, right? And nobody would take their calls, nobody would take their auditions, they couldn't get any work. So what they started to do was create these little skits, as you all remember on Vine, and that's how they were able to not only show the world they could act, but also garner millions of fans. You all know who they are in this room. What I think is fascinating is they were able to build social media in a way that it had never been used before. And I was able to kind of take a front row seat at that and watch them build their careers. We work together now all the time. A lot of the videos that you see, I do. Zeus Network, you know, I'm a part of that. So it's just like these social media influencers, you know, Kevin Hart, The Rock, these people, they have become their own brands where they've put a lot of marketing companies out of business because they're marketing themselves, and who knows their demographic better than themselves. So when you're talking about analytics and strategically lining yourself up on the social media game and in the platforms, you're talking about millennials that built an infrastructure within a technology that was already created, and I think it's fascinating. I 100% say that if you are on your phones and you're in social media, learn it outside of just the entertainment value of it, because people like myself are spending thousands of dollars marketing through social media, and if you understand the way that it works, you will have a job and you will put other people out of work, unfortunately, because it is a young person's game right now. You all know way more than me, just because you guys have grown up like with your cell phones attached to your hands. Like that's literally what you all have grown up in. And your cell phone is very powerful if you use it the right way. It can also cripple you if you use it the wrong way. But just know that I know people who have literally created millions of dollars from their cell phone by just turning it around and creating their own business. And so I would literally 100% advocate towards social media and its marketing and its power. It's how I got my film to where it is right now. And I would literally stand on a platform and say, make sure you pay attention to social media.
I'm going to follow up on that, because for me personally, social media is like a second job, because I spend 10 hours a day. I'm on the morning show, and then I'm either writing scripts, researching something, out on a story, doing a live shot. At the same time, I'm supposed to be doing social media, Facebooking live, putting things on Instagram, making sure that I tweet things out. And Twitter, I use differently. I use Twitter in the morning like you do. I use it for information or to give out information for my traffic. I don't use it so much from a social aspect. But Insta and Facebook, I do. I have apps that I edit on my phone. So I was doing a live shot at Bankston's Pumpkin Farm a couple of weeks ago, and I spent an hour when I was done just shooting stuff on my phone, and then I put together a little video, and it was great. This thing damn near went viral. I mean, it's shared. I can't even tell you how many people shared it, because I tagged the Bankston's Farm, and then they tagged it, and then everybody was on it. I'm still getting people responding to it. But it takes a lot of work. We're not as lucky as Eric in the morning. We don't have a social media person for our morning show. We have to do everything ourselves. We do have somebody who is also one of our editors in the morning, but she's doing the job of 3 people, and she's doing social media for the show. So you guys, this is where you get to think outside the box and you get to come up with something creative and some way to make social media work for you to get a job. And all you need to do is go walk into one of these places and talk to somebody who's my age and say, I know what you need, and show it to them. And they're going to go, oh, yeah, you're right. That's cool. Seriously, this is what you're saying. It hasn't been developed yet. It's for you to make that happen. But it is a lot of work. And be careful. I echo this. Be very careful what you put out there. Because once it's out there, hon, it's out there. It's not going away. So, yeah.
So I have a question for Roz. This is from Estelle. She's from Maine West and an aspiring TV anchor. Estelle, say hi. There's Estelle.
Hi. I hear you, but I can't see you. Hi.
She would like to know, what is one tip you would give someone about public speaking in front of a camera?
The best advice I can give you about speaking in front of a camera is pretend the camera's not even there. You know, think of it as talking to your friend. You've got to like focus and not think about it. You think about it and it's going to make you nervous. Same thing as being on stage. You know, don't think about all the people out here in the audience. Just one person. I'm talking to one person. And it will help you get that comfort level. It takes time. Getting comfortable in front of a camera, getting comfortable in front of a microphone, it takes time. So don't be hard on yourself. Practice and use that nervous energy, turn it into positive energy. I'm very animated when I talk, right? Part of that is my nervous energy, and I just use it to get my message across. That's how I would answer that question. Hope that makes sense.
This is a question for all of you, and this is from Pallavi. She's actually not here because she had to take a math. Oh, no. Oh, hi, Pallavi. Hi. And she really wanted me to make sure that this got asked, and it is a very important question because you've all kind of touched on it in your stories. You know, your career pathway, none of your career paths was a straight line. So how do you deal with failure and setbacks?
Sure, why not? Yeah. I actually welcome no's. The more no's I hear, that means that my yeses are around the corner. Might sound cliche, but it actually is how I live my life. I get told no every day. I got told no this morning for a deal that I was trying to close. When I was struggling, the one thing that kept me going was believing in myself. A lot of times you hear all the cliche, you gotta believe in yourself, you gotta, motivate yourself, but honestly, everybody around me couldn't give me any advice because they hadn't gone to where I was going, where I wanted to go, where I saw myself going. So I had to wake myself up every day. I wasn't coming back to Chicago without a movie. I was not coming back to Chicago without where I saw myself at. And you have to dig deep inside yourself and find whatever it is that keeps you going to continue to get your butt up every day and make it. Whatever making it means to you. I still haven't made it. So whatever that means to you, you got to dig deep inside, because there's going to be times when nobody believes in you. There's going to be times when the world looks horrible and that there is no way out, and you might just have to go and do what everybody else is saying that you should be doing. But if you push hard enough, you will get a breakthrough. I guarantee you will get a breakthrough. But you have to be honest with yourself.
Somebody told me one time that you hadn't made it in this business unless you were let go one time, because you had to feel what that was like. And, it's happened to me a few times. And from what I understand, none of them have been because of me. One of them was a station changed formats. I had different ownership situations in San Diego when I was there. But like I said before, you kind of have to have confidence in your own abilities, first of all, to realize that it's not a personal thing. It's a business decision that it sounds simpler to say because, I still struggle with some issues of feeling a little resentment, a little anger every once in a while towards my situation in San Diego. But if I spend more time on that, I can't look ahead to what is next for me. And you know, right now, it's getting back into baseball like I've gotten a chance to do. So you have to really look more forward than back. Okay, yeah, and you know, to Roz's point too, I've had pity parties for myself too. Some have lasted longer than others. You keep getting an increased guest list to that pity party, and you want to finally shut the door and have the bouncer say, nope, no more entry here, because that's counterproductive. It's just absolutely counterproductive. It will not help you get to that next level. You can use, as Ryan is saying, you can use that as motivation, because then you say to yourself, all right, well, these guys didn't think too highly of me, but I think highly of myself. I'm going to let the next person who hires me reap that benefit. And that's what you have to, that's kind of how you have to look at it. You can't take a lot of things in this business personally, because 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with your ability to do the job. It's a business thing. It's the boss knows somebody else that he wants to bring in. There's a whole lot of things you're going to experience. But that truth that you know inside your heart and in your mind that you're good enough to do what you're doing, and you have enough people believing in what you're doing, forget about what happened behind you. Concentrate on what's in front.
I've had a basket full of bad jobs, a whole basket full. And I moved all over the country for a lot of bad jobs. And many of them were situations where it just wasn't a fit, and I was asked to leave more often than I volunteered to. And I really, truly believe that the way that it works out when you look back on it, a lot of people can feel bad about that experience or feel a level of personal responsibility that cripples you. I really, truly believe that each one of those jobs created the scenario that I'm in now. And it is a true fact that each one of those jobs, when it ended, only opened the door for better opportunities. And a lot of people will feel bad when they lose something, and I think a mindset that you need to get yourself into is, I might have just lost something that I think is so great, but really wasn't that great, or is the next thing going to be even better? I probably worked 6 jobs, I try not to count, 7 jobs before getting to Chicago. I didn't last more than 2 years in any of them, not one of them. I got to Chicago, all of them built. I just kept building and building and building to the next opportunity, and convinced that I was going to reach a certain level to again, repeat what these folks are saying. I had this belief in myself that while others might not have believed in me, I knew what the end game was, and that was just how it was going to be. So I had these 6, 7 jobs, didn't last more than 2 years in any of them, and I've been in Chicago going on my 24th year now. Because I hit a spot where I found where I belonged. And I found the people that I needed to be working with that had a similar vision. And if you have the ability to stick to it, and you have the belief in yourself, and you can take levels of disappointment and turn those around into something positive, then good things can happen for you.
It's the kind of industry where this is going to happen. I guarantee it's going to happen. And you really have to have strong resolve, because people are going to say no. You are going to get fired. You are going to get let go. There are going to be layoffs and budget cuts. And echoing what my colleagues are saying, it is not necessarily your fault. I'll tell you a Maine East story. When I was involved in theater here, finally, by my senior year, when I tried out for musical, I got a small part, a mini lead, where I actually had a song of my own. And I was so thrilled and so grateful. And then several years afterwards, because I did keep in touch with my teachers here, the educators, and I found out that when they decided what musical they were going to produce for the year, they were kind of looking at it to see what talent they had that they could put in there. So it was already jaded. Can I say this? It was already somewhat predetermined, and that if somebody was really good and they blew them out of the water, then they would get that part. But it had nothing to do with me. They weren't looking at me and saying, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. And it was really very eye-opening for me. Very eye-opening for me. And when Mr. Jeffers told me this, I couldn't believe it. I had to take a step back, and that's how naive I was. But it was good for me to learn that. It was good for me to hear that, because it just made my resolve stronger. And my parents, especially my father, used to always say to me, you can't take no for an answer. Well, it's a good thing that I don't, because you're going to hear it a lot in this business. And if you're truly passionate about what you do and you are really confident and you believe in yourself, then you can get over the hump and take that no for an answer. And remember, every time a door closes, another one opens.
Can I throw one thing on that? Because I think that's a good point. There were times that I wasn't good enough. That's the truth. You know, and maybe I thought I was, and I look back on it now and realize, you know what, I probably could have done that differently. I probably could have done that better. I might have been a little lazy at this. I might have not tried my hardest. I might not have been as organized as I needed to be. And somebody just told me the hard facts that I needed to hear, like Roz was just saying. And you can have that resentment and you can have that belief in yourself, but also occasionally look in the mirror and go, and I say this to my kids all the time, did you really give it your best effort? Can you look in the mirror and tell yourself, yeah, I gave it my best effort, it just didn't work out. That's great. But can you look in the mirror and go, did I give it my best effort? I probably could have done a little bit more to it. And then on the next opportunity, take that learning experience and build from there.
This next question comes from Maine South students John Luke and Sam. This question's for Ryan. They both were interested in the screenwriting process, and they wanted to know kind of where do you start from? How does this process work for you? Kind of what's your method in terms of brainstorming, getting words on the page, and then do you work from an original idea, from source material, kind of some stuff like that?
It's a loaded question. Are you all here? Oh, what's up? How you doing? Good, man. Good. You know what's crazy is, so I met I have a writing team, right? There's it's about 10 of us. Started with 3 of us. We call ourselves Real Stories, REEL, Real Stories. And what we found in screenwriting class was that nobody knew what they were talking about. Because everything that we were taught in screenwriting class, we ended up throwing it out the window when we got to LA. The projects that we got picked up were literally, we're talking about big projects recently, are from the skills that we kind of put together in our own little writing style, right? Do you have Final Draft? Do you have Final Draft, the writing script software?
No, we use the screenplay formatter on Google Docs.
Okay. Get Final Draft. You can get Final Draft for $100. Do you work? Do your parents work? Christmas, man. That's Christmas coming up. I would recommend, if you're really serious about it, there's no time like the present to start right now. I would look into getting Final Draft. It's what everybody uses. I'm talking about, who's your favorite screenwriter? Ryan Lamar is your favorite screenwriter. Once you learn the proper process, which is the standard process when you're writing scripts, and Final Draft kind of lays it out, and maybe the script program that you're working for does the same thing. My ideas come from what I'm inspired by, right? What do you like to do? Like, what kind of scripts are you interested in writing? Okay, so theater. Awesome. What type? Like drama, comedy? Okay. So pulling from what you experience, pulling from stories that you want to tell, we honestly we create stories that we want to see, right? Because I don't have any business writing something that I'm not, that I don't know about or I'm not interested, and I don't want to do the research to do it, because there's millions of people that can write millions of things. So we just focus on the stuff that we want to write. We don't write things that we think other people want to see. We just write what we want to write, and it's really worked for us. I'm not saying that will work for everybody, but start in your backyard. Start with stories that you want to tell, that you would like to see on the stage, and go from there. If you have writing partners or people that you like to write with and collaborate with, because this industry is a collaborative effort. Anybody that tells you that they do it by themselves is a liar. I don't know, that's not possible, because it takes a team to create it takes a team. I think everybody can agree to that, That it takes a team. No matter if you're the star or you're number one on the call sheet or whatever you are, that takes an entire team to build that. The sooner I learned that, the quicker I was able to start to really make some headway in my field. I hope that answers your question. Okay, awesome.
I have a question for everybody. This is from Maya, and she would like to know, who is someone you look up to as a mentor, and what advice do you have for our students for finding a mentor in the industry?
Whoa. Yeah, that's a tough one. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. You think that a lot of people would not be approachable, but more often than not, they are. Especially if you're in this situation in high school, and you're looking to get into something that they're doing. When we were doing TV upstairs, we had people that would come in. We had to choose somebody that was in our field, and bring them in and do an interview with them. And I chose an old talk show guy that I grew up listening to by the name of Dave Baum, who still does some stuff on the Score every once in a while. But it was amazing that when I contacted him, how friendly and how he was. Come down, bring your dad, come down to the station. You know, you'll sit in for a show, whatever you need. Don't worry about it. And I've never forgotten that, because there have been people that have asked me, as I was going through the ranks of even working with the Cubs doing pre and post, and then going out to San Diego, you find out how many people really want to get into this, because if they know your parents or if they know somebody, they're going to try to get to you. And I tried never to forget that whole instance, because he could have just said, "Get away from me, kid. You're who do you think you are? You're in high school. Don't bother me. I'm a professional." I think you'd be surprised at how many people out there would be willing to spend some time with you, because they were in your shoes. They were definitely in your shoes at one point. And those are the people you don't want to be around if they tell you to get lost. They might not be able to give you a ton of time because of what job they're doing, but I think that anybody really worth their salt in this business will give you the time of day and give you a little bit of a preview to maybe what you can expect and kind of how they did things. Not that you have to imitate exactly what they did, but it gives you a really good idea of where they were at this point in their lives and where they are now.
Can I follow up
Yeah,
on
go ahead.
that? Because there are people at Channel 7. If you guys emailed somebody at Channel 7 and said, I'm a student at one of the main schools and I want to go into TV broadcasting, can I come over? Will you show me around? Can you look at my tape? I guarantee you, if they don't have the time, they will at least get back to you. They will get back to you. And most of them, myself included, would say, yeah, let me look at my schedule. Let me see. When are you on break? When do you have a day off? You want to come and sit in on the morning show? You never know unless you ask. And if you ask and they say no, you're no worse off than you were before, right? If you didn't ask, you've got to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. People are so approachable. My biggest mentors were my teachers at Columbia, my teachers at Maine East, because I knew that I could always go back to them and ask their advice. And it gave me a lot of information from their perspective and a lot of confidence, because they were always approachable as well. I just wanted, because that was such a great thing that you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea is discover what you want to do and immerse yourself in it. Figure out whatever that is, whether it's radio or TV or screenwriting or whatever it might be, and find a way to insert yourself into the process. Hanging around, being around, like Roz was saying and Andy was saying, go see the facilities, see the people there. But I find that one of the things that's most important is when you do that, if you're doing that to learn about things, then go through that process. Ask questions. Have ideas ready. Be memorable. As opposed to just going and taking a tour or hanging around, ask questions. Because what we do for a living, and then when people come in and want to be exposed to it, we remember the people that take the initiative and show that they are interested in doing this as well. And if that means going in at weird times or having an opportunity and meeting somebody out on the street and asking questions, be memorable. Try to put yourself in a position where these people go, you know what, this person really does have a passion for what's going on. I want to try to help them discover how to do it. And you'll find that while you're standing out with these questions, the people that will respond to it in this industry will ultimately become the people who are your mentors because they're doing the exact same thing back to you.
I'll just piggyback off of that. And by the way, you can also write theater teleplays on there too. It's not just movie scripts. Just want to make sure I told you that. I think the first person that gave me a shot in the industry was a gentleman by the name of Bernie Mac. And 2003, I was going to drop out of college. I just felt like I was learning anything at Columbia. And I ended up going to be an extra on a movie that he was filming called Mr. 3000 out of Milwaukee. And I'll never forget this because in film we have this thing called a key set PA. They're basically an assistant that goes for this, go for that, go for that. And I was an extra, and this woman, she was assigned to like 50 of us because we were in a baseball stadium. It was a baseball scene, and she looked good, and I was bored, so I was trying to holler at her. And
attaboy.
Just being honest. But in the middle of that, I went to go talk to her. In the middle of that, I never forget this. Something inside me said, "That's not what you're here for." And I said, "Hey, I want to do what you do. Can I follow you?" And it ended up being, she's like, "Are you serious?" I said, "No, actually I am. I go to Columbia College, et cetera, et cetera." And at the time, they were doing this thing. Disney had went over budget. So they have these things called French hour days. It's where the crew does not cut. And so they shoot 24 hours so they can get back on schedule. And the crew just eats and eats and eats. And so they actually needed PAs to work, basically to get their orders. And she said, "You have a resume?" And I lied. I said, "Yes, I have a resume." It's funny, I haven't told this story. I actually, in Maine East, I actually just put all my production projects that I had worked on my resume and like made them look like they were like big films or whatever. Fake it till you make it. No, but
smart, actually.
but I ended up getting the job, and they said, "Do you live in Milwaukee?" I said, "Absolutely, yes, I do." Okay, cool, awesome. So I had a car at the time, so I would drive from Chicago to Milwaukee every day just so I could like work on this set with these people. And within the first week, I was like 18 years old. Everybody on the set was like 32 and above. And it was this kid just like running around trying to learn. I'd never seen film equipment, never seen these actors. And Bernie came up to me, found out I was from Chicago, and he took a liking to me. And he said, he found out that I was actually going to drop out. And he said, "If you go back to school this fall, I guarantee you, when you graduate, I will get you a job on my show." And I was like, okay. That was 2000. That was 2003. So I started like 2 more years ago. Went back to school. Is Bernie Mac's going to give me a job? That's what's motivating me. I'm going to go back to school. Bernie Mac's going to give me a job. Summer 2005, get to LA. I hit up Bernie's assistant. I don't think he's like really going to hold his word. This man held his word, got me a job on the Bernie Mac show. I worked that show for like 3 years. Then like that 70s show and all this, and Bernie just kept getting me work. And what I found out later, God bless him, was that on those moments when we would have by ourselves, he was actually teaching me the philosophies of business. Where he would make me read these math books, and he would because I was horrible at math. But he was just, "Why does this guy keep giving me math books? I didn't come out here to be a mathematician." But that man literally was one of the first people in the industry to look out for me, and was one of the first people that really showed me that these stars and these quote-unquote people in Hollywood are just regular people that are approachable if you know what you want to do and you're confident enough to talk to them and say, "Look, I'm not asking you for $1 million. I'm asking you for 5 minutes of your time. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you could tell me in 5 minutes that would help my career." And so that was probably the first person. I know it was a long story, but that was the first person that actually, believed in me.
Thank you. Yeah, and just my own little piggyback story. My parents, they might be watching the stream, and I'm putting this event together, and they're like, "How are you getting all these people to come?" I said, "Well, I just asked them." They said yes. So there is definitely something to that.
We're not getting paid?
Oh. I've been up since 2 in the morning.
That's right.
Yeah,
Lunch, cool.
Yeah, and some of you have been up since 2 in the morning. So again, thank you for your time. It's so incredible. This is a specific radio question. I found this very interesting. I don't know who answered this, but to the radio announcers, how do you know if a radio segment is working, and how do you know if it's not working?
Well, I mean, I know when we do sports talk shows, if it's working, we're going to get a lot of text messages telling us one way or the other if it's working or not. I think it's kind of instant feedback. Unfortunately, nowadays with the fact that you can text us right at the radio station and get on Twitter, and I think that we get more instant feedback these days than I think we used to probably. I know it used to be judged by the amount of phone calls that you would get at the radio station, but as the years have gone on, you find out that the people that are calling are what they call the P1s, the active listener, the ones that are going to call you for every little thing that's going on. They noticed a cat was stray outside their house. They want to call you to tell you about it because for whatever reason they think that you're their buddy and their friend. But I think now it's just more of I think not just because not only because of the stuff that you get as far as texts or tweets. And Eric, I think you can probably respond to this even better doing a morning show. But you kind of have this thing in your mind going, "Oh, this is not good," or "Oh, this has gone on way too long. We need to wrap this thing up and do it."
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's one of those things like you guys when you're writing something or you're writing a paper or you're working in the radio station or whatever, you know when something's good, right? You can feel it. There's a feel that you have where you know, all right, there's a rhythm to it. When you get into it and you realize, okay, this is clicking, this is clicking, this is clicking, and you can feel the moment when that rhythm ends, and that's time to get out. And that's the thing about radio, that you have to trust those instincts. Radio people historically, obviously, as opposed to stage people, you know, there's no immediate gratification in your mind. You could be thinking, well, the whole world thinks this is the most hilarious thing that's ever happened, and you're dying, and you don't even know it. And maybe that's part of the beauty of what we're doing, because then you don't ever see that negative response that could chop you off right at the knees. But you know when something's working. And I remember once, and when I first got to Chicago and we were starting to build this show, and some good things were starting to happen, and we were trying to figure out how to sustain that kind of thing. I had a guy, speaking of mentors, a friend of mine who's a consultant on the East Coast, who had told me once, and it stayed with me, it's always stayed with me, and I still believe it to this day, that in my business and what I do, if you hit one home run a day, you'll be successful. Hit one home run a day, and you'll win. And so I said to him, I go, okay, well, that makes sense. How do you know when you've hit a home run? And he said to me, you'll know it. You'll just know it. And so I said that to the rest of the staff the first couple of years. I said, our goal today is hit one home run. And when it happens, I want everybody to say it. And almost universally, every morning when the home run would happen and we'd turn the microphones off and we'd all look at each other, everybody would go, there it was. There's our home run. And it's amazing when that happens, you immediately relax, you start to perform better, you build confidence, and those things can continue to build on one another. And I think that it not only applies to radio, but to a lot of different mediums, even to school, work, life, college, whatever. Hit one home run a day in life and you're going to end up being successful.
This is for the mostly the on-air personalities, and several students submitted this. Rena and Emily were curious. Are there kind of set routines you do to prep yourselves, both from a content standpoint, but also from a vocal standpoint, before you go on the air?
Don't eat chocolate. I have a little bit of a different routine than you guys would, but there is quite a bit of show prep involved. And coming from radio, I'm used to doing that. We go on the air at 4:30, but I get there at 3. And we have very strict makeup times So you can't be late. There are 4 of us who have to get made up on our morning show. Tracy comes in at 10 to 3. I'm in makeup at 3:20. Tanya is in at 3:45, and Terrell gets 10 minutes because he's the guy. But we each get about 25 minutes or so. And I like to come in. I like being on the earlier end of doing makeup, because then I have from 4 o'clock until 4:30 to get my traffic together. I work with a producer, so he puts together my maps, but we tag team to get our information together. So it gives me a half an hour to acclimate, to go through. I have a whole bunch of websites that I use, some cold calls, but mostly websites and scanners. We listen to scanners. And that's how we get our information. So that half hour gives me enough time to get a good feel for what's going on, to feel prepared and ready. And by the time I do my first traffic at 5:20, 4:29, or whatever it is, I know in the back of my mind what's happening, and then we go from there, because with traffic, it's always changing. I can prepare maps, I can prepare construction, but for instance, this morning with the BNSF, when they had wires, a freight train snagged wires, and they had live wires across all 3 tracks out in the western suburbs, and there was no train service in either direction for over 2 hours. So, I mean, that was breaking news, and it really took over what I was doing, still trying to get the rest of my information. So I'm constantly gathering information, but I need that time, especially getting up that early. And I know, Eric, getting up early, it's a little bit more challenging, because you're not really awake, and it's not normal to be up at 2 in the morning. What time do you get up?
I think TV people are insane. I do.
We are.
The hours that they keep, it's crazy. I get up about 4:15. I actually have Roz and her show on in the morning when I'm getting ready.
That's cool.
And so while Roz is already at work, I'm just waking up. But then I get to work, and we go on the air at 5:30. I tend to prep the show the night before. I do the majority of the heavy lifting on laying out the show the night before, and then we have producers that get in about 4:30, 4:15 that handle the stuff that happened over the night. And we go on the air at 5:30, and I hit the door at 5:25. I mean, I walk in, we throw the headphones on, and away we go. But that's by design. We've been doing it for a very, very long time, and there's a system in place, and a lot of people have been doing this for a lot of years and know what they're doing. So this is not something that's happened overnight. But in our industry, and you guys will discover this when you get into it, it is a very disciplined, regimented industry. It has to be, because you can't be late for work. When you're having a bad moment, you can't go take a walk. You can't go use the bathroom whenever you feel like it. None of that stuff happens. I live my life in 60-second increments between 5:30 and 10, literally 60-second increments for the entire time. So at 10 o'clock, I'm usually mentally tired, and we have a rule in our station that none of the staff or the salespeople or promotions people can talk to the morning show for a half hour after we get off the air, because we just need to mentally decompress. Now, granted, I always say this to the staff too, to my morning show staff. I'm like, listen, we're not breaking bricks here, okay? Let's be honest. For 4.5 hours, we work 4.5 hours a day. We're going in, we're having a good time. So don't be a jerk about it. But there is a mental component that you need to hit the reset button and let your body get back to normal. So we do that, and then from 10 to 3, I kind of decompress, and we get rolling again about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the next day's show. But it's mentally difficult for a very short period of time. You have to have the mental discipline to stay with it.
And sports prep is a little bit different, I think, than what Roz does and even what Eric does. I'll just take baseball, for example. A lot of people used to think that when I would do my pregame show that I would get to the ballpark maybe an hour before. I'm there sometimes 5 hours before first pitch. And it's a draining day. I mean, it's not just the actual show that we're doing. It's trying to come in there with a plan, which I think is the biggest thing that you can do in any situation. You need to have a plan. You need to figure out how you best prep. There's different ways of doing it. Not one way is right. It's whatever fits your situation. Now, I hate going into situations where I'm not prepared. Now, granted, there's going to be things that happen at a baseball stadium before first pitch that there could be a roster move made, there could be a trade made, there could be an injury. So you have to be flexible enough to know that you have to get this information, because it's the lead story of the day. I remember a few times going to, even to this year, I had a show prepped, I was ready to go, and literally 2 hours before, we get the story that Wellington Castillo, the catcher for the White Sox, gets suspended for 80 games. So, oh, that stuff goes out the window. It's time to prepare a new show, and now I only got an hour and a half to do it. So, I mean, I have the confidence in myself to be able to do it because I've been doing it for a long time now. But preparation to me is the biggest key to anything because you have to go in with an idea. You have to kind of go in with a plan. That way you can react if something else happens. You already know what you really wanted to say, and now you get a chance to kind of pontificate about something completely different, and you can maybe even save the other thing for another show if it's not time sensitive. But preparation is the biggest thing. You don't want to over prep because then you sound like you're reading, and you sound like you're just sitting there looking at your paper. When you prep, you feel good about things. Conversation, it just flows because you're ready to go. You're ready to do your thing. But again, it's all about how you are able to retain information, whether it's typing it out, whether it's writing it out, whether it's repeating it 100 times to yourself. You find that as you go. But prep to me is the biggest thing about what we do for a living.
You know, and I get asked that question, the question we're answering a lot, and all I would say is everybody's different. Like, you know, I get other morning shows from around the country ask me, well, how do you do it? And I'll say, well, I'll tell you how I'm going to do it, but it's not going to work for you because you got to do it the way that you do it. You got to find the way that you do it. Just because I do it a certain way doesn't mean it's going to fit with you. And if I were to give you a template to follow, it doesn't mean it's going to work. You have to find over time, through repetition, what works best for you. It's like doing homework. If you guys have a homework project or you have to write a paper or whatever, you could sit down with somebody else in your class and they might have a system for doing it and they always get great grades. So you say, well, I'm going to do it that way, and you do it that way and it still doesn't work. You got to find your own way and discover the best way to reach that end goal.
I'm not sure who this question is from, but have you ever made a big mistake on air, maybe while you were live, and how did you recover?
About every 10 minutes.
I was going to say, too, because baseball, it's live. You know, there's no way around it. You can't make that stuff up. And we're going back to talking about mentors. Pat Hughes is one of the guys that does the Cubs games now, who I just loved his style and the way he dealt with these kind of things. He would make fun of it. And, you know, some people will tell you, you know, don't call any attention to it, just keep going. A lot of times when I do sports updates, I just kind of blow past it because you don't have a lot of time you get about a minute and a half to make sure you get the scores in there and the stories. But as far as live sporting events, you're not a robot. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to misidentify a player. It happens. The way you recover from it is you just move on. I always equate it to golf. Anybody play golf out there? Okay. You hit one bad shot. You don't want to concentrate about the bad shot again because you're going to hit another bad shot. And then you're going to hit another bad shot and another bad shot. So I'm doing a game in St. Louis, and I'm with the Padres, and I'm looking out into left center field, and our catcher hits a ball that looked like it went out of the ballpark. From where we were sitting, and I didn't have a chance to look at the monitor, I called it as a home run. I see my partner holding up two fingers. I'm like, oh crap, it's a double. All right, it bounced on the warning track and went over the wall. So, you know, after years of doing this, I kind of went back and I said, well, you know, from this vantage point, it looked as though that ball went over the wall cleanly. It happened to bounce on the track. That's a ground roll double, not a home run. Ground roll double, and I move on. I mean, it's a bad mistake. I mean, you don't want to be making them. You try not to make them, but you're going to make them, and just move on. Pat was great, just, you know, being able to say if he made a mistake, you know, these are live broadcasts. You just report to people that, you know, you're human. You make a mistake every once in a while, and it's gonna happen.
You know what? Nobody ever remembers mistakes unless they're colossal.
Unless they're really egregious.
But for the most part, I always try to mention that to our staff. No, you know, we're really overinflating our self-importance if we think that our screw-up, somebody's going to be talking about at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're not. So whatever happens, happens. Keep moving forward and doing what you do. And for what we do for a living, mistakes are sometimes the best part of the show because they're natural, they're real, they're not scripted, they're authentic, they're fun, they're vulnerable. All of those things are good things. So I always say, let's not run from our mistakes. Everybody makes them. Everybody's going to understand that, and something actually good can happen from this. So let's take this moment and spin it into something positive.
There was not too long ago, I was trying to do something on our touchscreen board, and I was trying to set something up, and they were in weather, and I thought I had time, and I had my back to the camera, and I'm trying to do something, and I was focused on what I was doing, and I wasn't paying attention, even though I had my earpiece in, and the next thing I hear the anchors going, Roz, Roz, and I like whipped around, and I'm like, hi. You know, and I just like, live TV, you gotta love it. And then I just went on with what I was doing. And of course, everybody pulled that clip, and it was a Facebook moment. And we had fun with it because it wasn't a horrible thing. But like, you know, what Eric is saying, you move on. Sometimes it's a good moment. You can have fun with it. If you make an error, accuracy, you have to go back and correct that. That's a whole different type of screw up. I mean, that's, you know, sometimes that happens too in news. And we'll come back and say, it should have said da-da-da, we regret the error. And then you move on. Because again, the more attention you draw to this, you know, half the time people don't even notice that you're making a mistake. So you just take care of it very quietly and move on.
Thank you. This will be the last, I think, kind of, you know, scripted question. I think after this one, we'll go to kind of a free Q&A like we've been doing. This is for Ryan, and this is from Vanessa. And make this a two-part question, Ryan. She only asked the negative, but I'm going to ask the positive. So what, directing film, what do you feel to be the most rewarding part of that process? What do you feel to be the most stressful part of that process?
Oh, I'll start with the stressful. On the stressful side, it's learning how to play in a sandbox with studios. Majority of the studios I work with are not creative, which is always weird to me because I have to go pitch my creative ideas to people that aren't creative. And so you got to kind of find that happy place. And sometimes you'll get passed over, like you were saying, which has nothing to do with creative, it has everything to do with a business decision. And then you end up seeing an episode, or I was up for doing something, and then you end up seeing the movie or the TV show, and you're like, really? You guys did win with that? All right. You know, but you know, I just think sometimes it's just really stressful to deal with that. And then you have to just kind of look past it, like you were saying, and just keep moving forward. I also find, you know, when you're on set, like we shot Canal Street in 16 and a half days, and it was not fun. We should have at least shot that movie in 30, 32, 35 days. But at the end of the day, you know, we only had $2 million to shoot the movie. Probably should have had $10 million to shoot the movie, but we were able to bring in top-tier actors, and so I had to figure out a strategy to get them in and out. I had to also make sure that their performances were on point. I had to make sure that their agents were happy. I had to make sure that they were only on set for 8 hours. I had to make sure that, you know, I'm getting the right coverage, because if you don't get the right coverage, they'll text their agents and say, I don't think he's getting the right coverage from me. Make sure, and then the agents will call your agent and then say, why aren't you getting enough coverage for that actor? And then I have to tell them, because it's my movie, I'm going to get good coverage I want to get. But, you know, and that is a daily process as a director, pitching and pitching and pitching and having people tell you no, you know, is a daily process for me. But the rewarding thing is, honestly, being able to get up and get paid to tell my stories, work with actors that have worked with amazing filmmakers, and they believe in you enough to spend their time. Obviously, you're paying them, but to spend their time with you, to give you the undivided attention. I would say the most rewarding thing is sitting in a movie theater, packed, opening day, theaters are full. Your movie is charting, and people are saying that that was a good film. I don't think there is anything better than that. And to end it on this, when you write a script in 2005 and that movie is coming out in 2019, that probably is the most rewarding thing of my life as a director.
Thank you guys again. So now we're going to make this kind of more informal with the time that we've got left. So sign a live Q&A. We'll start going into the audience. So if you have a question, yeah, Annalise, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Annalise. I'm from Maine East. And I have a question for Eric. And I think we're all pretty curious about this. What happened to Kathy?
Oh, man, here we go. You'd like to know? You know what? I would actually like to know, to be honest with you. A lot of people don't believe when I say this that, and I have to choose my words very carefully here. We don't really know. We don't really know. Sometimes in an industry, in any type of business situation, situations come up that just dictate that somebody wants to leave, doesn't want to leave, has something else they want to do. It could be any number of things. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the final outcome was. Whatever happened was separate from what we do, and my whole goal during all that was to continue to do what we do and to give that my full attention and let other people figure out what they want to do with their lives or what might be going on with their lives, whether, whatever it might be. I don't really know, and my attention and focus was to continue to move the show forward and do so in a way that allowed everybody that remained to be successful. And thankfully and fortunately, we've been able to do that. Maybe someday I'll be able to find out. A lot of people wonder when's the last time that I've talked to her. Last time I talked to her was the day that she left. And we thought she was coming back the next day. And she never did. So I don't really know. And I hope the story comes out someday so the rest of us can actually know. But we're happy where we are now, and we feel good about what we're doing now, and the results of the past year and a half that she's been gone bear that out, and we're excited about the direction that we continue to go with it.
Hello, I have a question for Andy. You've worked for the Cubs, Padres, and White Sox. Which team did you have the most enjoyment of working for?
It's funny because people ask you, I grew up a Cubs fan, and working there was really kind of surreal to me to be going into that booth and to be covering the team that really kind of made me want to go into this industry. I mean, way back when my dad and I were watching games on TV, and an old broadcaster by the name of Jack Brickhouse was always doing the play-by-play, and he was a great interviewer. This guy got to interview everybody. I mean, he wasn't just a sports guy. He was interview presidents and things of that nature. So it was really kind of surreal to go to that booth. And I think that the enjoyment that I had there was more of the group that we had in the booth. It was Pat Hughes, it was Ron Santo, and it was our engineer, Matt Boltz, who we were just like a family. I mean, we were together for 7 or 8 months out of the year, and it was always really enjoyable just to know that I was going to go to work and I was going to see these guys. And it was a lot of fun to do that. Now, I always wanted to be a main play-by-play guy. So when I got the opportunity to go to San Diego, that was fun in and of itself because I got to be what Pat was doing and what I really wanted to be doing for the rest of my life, I hope. And I had hoped at that point too. So it was a different kind of enjoyment for me. It was more of a satisfaction than it was an enjoyment that I had gotten to where I really wanted to go. I knew there was a lot of work that was yet to be done. I met some great people in San Diego. I met some great people with the White Sox. I never thought that I would even say that growing up as a Cub fan.
Wow.
But I just you never think you're gonna end up, you're gonna end up working with the White Sox. And I got to tell you, I mean, I had one of the best times I ever had last year because I was learning again. And you feel like sometimes you get to the point where you don't have to know anything, which is completely wrong because you can continue to learn. And I learned on the South Side that there's just a hidden gem on the south side of Chicago that no one's talking about, and that this team has a possibility of being a really good team in a couple of years. And watching the growth and watching the kind of ground floor activity that I got to see was really kind of unique, because I had never really seen that before. Because when the Cubs were struggling when I was there, they never picked a direction. They were always trying to put a Band-Aid on a big wound, and it never really seemed to work. Same thing with the Padres. We had a couple winning seasons, and that was really about it. And with the White Sox, it was just kind of fun to be around guys that were playing the game because they really enjoyed it and they wanted to get better at it. And it really kind of, to me, made for better shows, because I think that I kind of caught that kind of infectious little vibe that was going on through their clubhouse. So it was pretty cool to see. I'm really looking forward to going back next year and seeing exactly how they progressed from 2018 out to 2019, then when we go to 2020 as well. So I think it's a little bit of, it's difficult to say which was the most enjoyable. I think they were all enjoyable for different reasons.
Hi, I'm Angelina, and I have two questions for Andy. One of them is, if you could choose any MLB team, who would you want to go for? And then the second one is, how has traveling during the baseball season affected your life?
Good question. That I'm going to go with that one first. Okay, so I'm 51, and I've never been married. So that kind of tells you what goes on with travel as far as baseball is concerned. You're on an airplane every other week. Now, it's great air travel, and it's great travel to hotels. Once I put my bag on the plane, I don't see it again until it gets into my room, because these Major League Baseball players are so spoiled that they can't lift up their own bags. Maybe fear of injury. I don't know if that's the case, but you're still logging the miles, and it does take its toll, because you're missing a lot of things around home too. You're missing a lot of family events. I mean, I can't tell you how many birthday parties for my nieces I had to miss because I was in another city. It's tough. I mean, that part of it's hard. So, when I talk about dedication to your craft and dedication to what you're doing, that's part of what I'm saying, because you're going to have to give up a lot to gain what you want to gain professionally. You're going to have to give up some personal space and some personal life that you're used to having. I mean, I didn't see my friends quite a bit, during, unless I was home. They wanted to go out when I was home. I'm like, man, I've been on the road for 10 days. I don't want to go out. I'm staying home. I'm not doing anything. So it's that part of it is kind of an underrated thing, I think, for a lot of broadcasters who cover Major League Baseball, football. It's not as much, but basketball and hockey as well. You're in and out of cities. At least we got a couple of days to spend in a city. The last question. Right now, I would go to any city that wanted me to be their main play-by-play guy, and I would go there with a big smile on my face. How's that for a politically correct answer?
So my question's for Ryan. And I was wondering what kind of contact you have with the composer when you're making your movies, and when you're writing them, do you think of the soundtrack when you're making it?
That's an amazing question. I am a control freak when it comes to music and anything that I do. I actually have been doing music my entire life, so I am 1000% in communication with them from the moment I'm writing my script to literally the end of post-production. The last thing I'm doing, I'm actually flying to Burbank tomorrow to relook at a song that I just created with somebody because I didn't like the way it sounded in a screening that I was looking at. So I am in constant contact with the composers, the musicians, and even the people that are doing the original music, from the singers to whoever is putting any ounce of music into the film, because music is one of those things that can cover up a bad cut or can cover up something that you couldn't pay for in another, part of your production. So I am heavily involved on the music side. Music is so important in a lot of different ways, as you can tell as I'm talking about it right now. So that answer your question? Awesome.
Hi, my name is Shane. I have a question for Eric. Now, I understand you're with Eric. I'm sorry, your show is Eric and Melissa with the web. So, did they come to you or did you come to them?
About
Work.
about starting the show?
Yeah.
I was in one of those weird situations when this show started. I was doing a morning show in Denver and was at a contract impasse. And it didn't look like I was going to renew my contract with the station in Denver. So I was sitting out and just kind of biding my time. And, I grew up in Chicago, and in our industry, everybody wants to work in the big three markets, New York, LA, or Chicago. And because I was from here, this was my ultimate goal. And I remember one day that I got a call from a guy that I had worked for who was working in San Diego. He says, hey, if you get the Chicago job, you have me to thank based on the reference I just gave you. And I said, well, what Chicago job? I don't know anything about a Chicago job. He's like, well, I just got a call that your name is up for consideration on a Chicago job. I didn't know anything about it. And it was like a movie. Maybe you could write this. I literally, this is the truth. I said, well, I don't know anything about it, but thanks. And I set the phone down, took one step, and the phone rang. And I picked it up, and it was Chicago calling. And they wanted to get together and talk. And as it turns out, a station that I'd been working, and this happens a lot in our industry, a station that I'd been working against in Denver had sent some of my material, knowing that I'm from Chicago, to a station in Chicago to try to get me hired out of Denver back into Chicago, so that their properties in Denver could continue to excel. So it was the perfect storm, and I ended up coming here and got a deal done, and have been here 23 years now, and it's been the greatest thing of my life.
Question for, oh, there it is. Howdy. I have a question for Roz. Before I ask that question, I am very confident in where your signature is, so can I be the first one to tell you that?
Sure, go for it.
Oh, right now?
Go for it.
Nice. Paint deck.
Bingo. Who said I told you?
What?
I just heard somebody down here say, I told you. Somebody. Sorry about something else. Okay, never mind. What was your question?
As for my question, so out of curiosity, when was it or what was it made you realize that it wasn't theater that was really your calling and it was what you're doing now?
Well, that's a good question. I was auditioning, and I don't even remember what it was for, because it was my freshman year, probably 2 or 3 months into it. And I looked at the other people who were auditioning, and they were truly, truly talented. And I like to sing. I do my best singing in the shower. I don't have perfect pitch. I love to play the piano. I can only play with my right hand. I'm taking guitar lessons. I'm terrible at it, but I just love doing it. I can listen, and I can say, this is too high, this is too low, this is off key, this is wrong, I'm not tuning my guitar right, it's too, whatever. But it's not 100%. And I could see that because I could see the other people who were better than me. And like what you were saying, you have to know that you're not good enough. It wasn't that I didn't give it my best. I gave it my best. But it wasn't as good as the other people. And luckily for me, I saw that, and I knew it, and I went with it and realized I'm not ever going to be that good. I enjoy it. I'm a total theater geek. I love going to theater. Who saw Hamilton? How great is Hamilton, right? Right? I mean, come on. I love going to theater. And fortunately, my daughter, who just graduated from college, still loves going to theater with me. And some of her friends from high school. And we all go together, and we really enjoy it. And I'm much better at it that way. And then we can all sit there and criticize it and talk about it, blah, 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 blah. But there are other things that I am better at. And I don't know. I'm just fortunate that I had the insight to know that. And going in radio, you can still perform. You guys are performing every day, right? It's a different type of performance. And that led to television. So maybe I'm not on the stage, I'm not on Broadway, I'm not doing that, but I am performing in my own way. And being in television and doing what I do is so much more rewarding because I am also helping people. And I get to cover stories that make a difference because I get really tired of all the stuff that is in breaking news. I get tired of the violence. I get tired of the politics. I get tired of it day after day after day. And so when I come across a story idea that I can tell and make a difference, that is the most rewarding thing about my job, seriously. That's not where we were going with this, but that's where we ended.
My question is for Eric. I know you have a very widespread demographic for your show, and I was just wondering how you create your content for each day because of that.
That is a constant battle. That's a good question, too. Yeah, we do. We're fortunate when you've been on the air as long as we have. I run into it all the time where people listen and now their kids listen, and families are listening together. Moms listened when they were teenagers, and they have teenagers of their own now. And so you try to do the best you can to be broad-based appeal to the largest audience possible, but it's never going to be perfect. It's an inexact science, and so because of that, you find moments for everybody. You might do something that's a little more targeted, 20-something or teen-based early, and then that topic, you will evolve that into something that the parents can relate to and that maybe even the next generation can relate to. But, there are so many things from an entertainment-based standpoint that appeal to all of us. I mean, you guys saw, like what Roz just said when she mentioned Hamilton, and, half the hands went up in the room. And, my grandparents went to see Hamilton. So there are things that all of us can relate to. There are things that all of us understand. I can talk about personal relationship issues that could be relevant to you guys or could be relevant to a 20-something. And while it might not be currently relevant to somebody my age or older, they went through it at some point and have a point of reference to it. So we all have that commonality. And the idea is to just do the best you can to find as many of those topics as you can each and every morning.
Hi, I have a question for Roz. You have a really great personality. You're so open and approachable. What qualities are important for TV, and why do you think they matter?
That's a great question. It's really hard to answer that. What qualities are great for television? Well, you can't be afraid of being out in public, that's for sure. And there is a huge element of discipline, okay? Because I am a public figure, and when I go to the grocery store, more people recognize me at Costco than anywhere else in the world. I don't know why that is. So I never walk into a Costco without full makeup on. I'm not kidding. But they do. But I have to be on my best behavior when I am out in public because people will recognize me, and I won't know that they recognize me. And if I'm having a bad day and I'm having a hissy fit, they're going to go, look at that Roz Barron. Oh, my God. I can't do that. So that discipline is very important. And I know that's not what you're asking. You're asking about what's important to be on television. And I'm just talking about being on TV in general. That is something that is always in the back of my mind, always. But as far as being on TV, being on camera, you have to be able to think quickly on your feet, because things change. Mistakes happen, and you have to be able to go with it and be able to just keep, like today, I was doing a live shot at 11 o'clock, right before I came here. I was out on the Chicago Skyway, and I was doing a live shot, and I had my earpiece in, and the receiver, the battery died. So my photographer said, here, take mine. So and I've got, the producer is like, you're 35 seconds away. So I'm like putting his on, and I'm trying to tuck it into my coat, and I'm putting my earpiece on. And I started doing my live shot. And when I was toward the end of it and the anchors were talking to me, I turned my head and my earpiece popped out. So I couldn't hear what they were saying, but it had a cord. I actually use earbuds when I'm out live because I can hear better with those. So it had a cord. I'm talking to them on air. I'm looking in the camera, and I'm nonchalantly digging around for this thing and sticking it back in my ear. Just kept going, didn't miss a beat. Now, in the beginning of my career, I probably would have never been able to do that. But with time, you become more comfortable. Here's another answer to that question. In the back of your mind, always have a backup plan because things are going to go wrong. What are you going to do if something goes wrong? Because it will. It does. And you have to keep going. It's live television. You can't stop and say, wait a minute, I got to fix this. Got to keep going. So a lot of that just comes with time and experience. The younger me would never have been, I would have been deer in headlights. But you learn how to do that. You have to be able to think quick. There are people at the station who I admire because when we have breaking news, they are as cool as a cucumber. Judy Sue is one of them. She will just sit there and she can talk off the top of her head and she can just go on and on and on and she can look at a scene and she can listen to somebody talking in her ear. And that's another thing. You have to be able to not be distracted because when you have an earpiece in and you've got producers or directors giving you cues or talking to you, especially during breaking news, you have to be able to hear that and keep talking at the same time. You think anchors are just sitting there reading off a teleprompter? They are doing a lot more than that because there's a lot more going on. It's a team effort. You've got people in the control booth. You've got people on the floor who are giving you cues, and you've got people in your head. And then you have to be able to look like you're just being very comfortable and talking nonchalantly and doing your thing and being conversational. Who said being conversational? One of you guys was talking about how important that is. You don't want to look like you're reading. It has to look like you're being conversational. So there are a lot of things going on at the same time. I have to say that my background in radio prepared me for a lot of what I do in television. The back timing, when I speak to people, I talk about back timing. I back time my life. Do you back time your life? Do you back time
Once
your
in a
life?
while, yeah.
I mean, not the whole day, but back timing is where you say, I have to have this ready by noon. It's going to take me an hour to do it. I have to start it at 11, and by 11:30, if I'm not halfway done, I'm in trouble. That's back timing. You're going backwards to make sure that you hit a mark. If we're going into a commercial break, and it's a hard commercial break from the network, and they're going to cut my mic off, and I have 60 seconds, I have to talk in 60 seconds and wrap it up in 60 seconds, or they're just going to cut me off. So there are a lot of different elements in television, but that's why you start in a smaller market and you work your way up so you can learn all these things in a smaller market before you come to a place like Chicago.
My question is for Roz. I have two questions.
Gotcha.
What's your Instagram? And
At Rosvaron ABC7, ROZVARON.
the second question, does it get boring doing the same thing every day?
That's a great question. No, it does not. It does not get boring because I don't let it get boring. There are routine things that I do, and the alarm goes off at 2 a.m. every day. Sometimes, I get up and I'm like, oh my God, again. And and I'm like in the shower, okay, and I lay everything out the night before. That part is very routine, and I have to do it every day, every day, every day. But when I am on the air, I look for things to do differently. The traffic always changes, so that part is going to be different. I try to find stories to do that are going to be different. So I could say, yeah, it gets mundane. I've been doing this almost 30 years. I can't believe I've been doing it. And then 9 years in radio before that, I've been doing traffic, a long time. But I look for ways to make it different and interesting because if it gets boring, it's time for me to get out. And I'm not ready to get out.
Hi, my question is for Ryan. What do you do whenever you get writer's block?
I never say that word. Whenever I get that word, that's when I go do something else. I don't force it, because whenever I force it, it just becomes bad writing. Sometimes I'll have that for months, weeks, days, But that's why it's also good for us to have a team. So I can say, look, guys, I'm out. I got concepts, but they're just not sticking on the paper right now. And so, again, I just don't force it. You never really want to force your creativity. I feel like creativity should never really be forced. I feel like that's when you get into issues, when you're not doing your best. I'm at the point now where I can say, look, guys, I'm not going to be my best right now. And vice versa. But again, I don't force it. Go do something else. There's millions of other things that I could be doing. And then sometimes it just hit me back. I'll get on the train. I love taking the train out here and people watch, and not in a creepy way, but but certain things that'll just jog back, just inspire me again. Because sometimes you just hit a wall. I get out the house and just get out and try to find something that will inspire me to get back into the groove.
Hey, can I add on to that for a quick second? Because speaking as a parent here, this is the same advice I would give my daughter if she's trying to write a paper. I mean, if you guys are doing homework, you have to write a paper, and you have this mental block, and you can't get the words down on paper. Walk away from it. That's such great advice. So it applies to a lot of different things. That's all I wanted to say.
You want mine?
Hello? Okay. Okay, hi, my name's Bella. I have a question for Ryan. This is like a bunch of things leading up to one thing. So like in this society today, it can be really hard to be something in a world that's like so big, like you can feel so small. So like how did you use your personal struggles and like all the breakdowns and like hard times to make you something that you are today?
That is a loaded question.
Man, that was heady. I want to hear this. That is deep. That's real deep.
What did they say? Everything that made me is everything I am today. I was just talking to my mom about this the other day. All my struggles have really given me the confidence at 35 now to sit in meetings and kind of shrug it off. Because you go through so much and you don't realize that those things that you're going through when you're 15, when you're 18, when you're 25, those things are just shaping you into prayerfully a beautiful person, a strong person that can persevere through a lot of those issues. And so I always like to make the joke that I've been through so much that whenever crap hits the fan, I'm just kind of cool cool. Like, if you ever see somebody who is just like sitting there in a burning building kind of calm, you're like, that dude's been through a lot. And I
You
just
should get out.
I know,
Run.
and I just learned how to work well under pressure. When you're on the film sets, you are working in constant chaos, and you have to learn how to operate in chaos so that when things are going wrong and everything that you prep for and plan for are out the window in day one, got to be able to spontaneously move at the speed of light, and you have to be thinking quickly on your feet because one, you're spending a lot of people's money, and two, people are looking at you to command things. And so my struggle gave me all of my progress today. Use all of your mistakes, use all of the bridges that you will burn. Unfortunately, you can't go through life and just everything is perfect. Be nice to people, even when you burn those bridges. And I just would say this last is that if you aren't creating haters in your life, you're doing absolutely the wrong thing. Every step that I have moved forward, I have created more haters. For whatever reason that is, you will find people that are against what you're working on and what you're doing. And I always just kind of take it and be like, well, I guess I just hit another home run. So yeah, that'll be my answer.
That's true. I'm glad you said that too, because that's a sure sign, I think, that things are going pretty well for you. because we live, and you guys know it more than anybody, we live in a society that's based in a lot of jealousy, and people will have jealousy of your successes, and you can't let that bring you down. You can't, when you have those moments or those people try to do those things to you, that's a sign that things might be going in the right direction for you. So, stay the course, stay the path on that.
Hi. So I have a question for Ryan. I was wondering, your movie just came out. What do you have planned next? I'm in the back.
There she is.
All the way back there.
That was like a magic trick.
Yeah, I was like, who was talking?
Like
The guy
a voice
stood up,
out of
I was like,
nowhere.
that's not his voice. So my movie comes out 1/18/19. Everybody say 1/18/19.
I was just going to ask you that too.
So, and everybody follow us at Canal Street Movie on Instagram. Canal Street Movie. Yes, Canal Street Movie. What was the question again? I'm so sorry.
It was what are you doing? What's next?
Well, you know what? That's an awesome question. A lot of people in the industry told me, wait till your movie comes out and then look at your opportunities and all that, blah, 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 blah. And I actually went the opposite way. I said, all right, cool. My movie's coming out on the 18th of January. And when I found out what the release date, it was like 5 months prior. So I was like, now I have 5 months to create more traction and get more work so that when my movie comes out, I'll already have work rolling into it. I thought it was insane for them to tell me to just sit there and wait for this date to come around, because that's not how I got there. So we're developing, what I can talk about is we're developing a show at Stars right now. We have a show over at Crackle that we just got picked up. And then we're also developing some exciting stuff with the guys over at Zeus, doing some stuff with Snapchat. So it's just like we're creating a lot of content right now. Film, 2 television shows on a reality show, and I'm just doing everything that I was working on for the last 10 years. Now I'm literally doing that. So I would say this too. If you're not on or you're not where you're supposed to be at that current time and you're still working towards it, then you have no excuse to not prep the stuff that when you get to where you're supposed to be, you can just say here. Whether that takes you 5 years, 10 years, that means you got 5 years to hone your craft, or 10 years to hone your craft. You should not be waiting around for somebody to say, okay, here's your opportunity now, because then you don't want to say, all right, I'm going to go back and take 6 months to give you something. So I'm literally working around the clock on things while that date is coming out.
We'll ask maybe, I think we've got a couple more questions. I think the 2 mics are out of people's hands, so we'll ask those questions and then we're going to try to wrap up. So sorry, time is time.
Hi, my name is Adam and this is for Roz. What's the best way to get to Clark Street by the Wrigley Field?
What's the best way to get to Clark Street?
Yeah.
By Wrigley Field?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Take the train, man. Don't drive. Are you kidding me? I would never tell anybody to drive. I don't even drive to Wrigley Field. I take the train. I take the CTA for sure.
My question's for Eric. What do you do if you can't come to work today since you're the main talent on your show?
You get up and go to work. Yeah, it's what you do. That's part of the discipline of what we do for a living. You brought up a great point. You're right. There isn't a plan B. So I've been doing it 24 years, almost 24 years, and I have never taken a sick day. And no, that doesn't deserve applause. No, because I have been ungodly sick, and I would have taken one had we had a plan B, but there really isn't one. We do in instances where something unforeseeable and unmanageable were to pop up, and thankfully that hasn't been the case. They will go into a best of show or a rerun show or something like that, but we try to avoid that at all costs. You know, like you were just saying, content is king, and if you want to be on the top of the mountain, you need to be constantly creating new and unique content each and every day, because if you rely too much on stuff that's been done before, go into reruns or miss a week here, miss a week there, that's when it starts to snowball against you and it can catch up. I've been doing it a long time, had a lot of success, thankfully, but I still look over my shoulder every single day, waiting to see who's coming. And I think it's important to understand that and do your job in a way that each and every day you're still trying to do the best you can possibly do and not just phone it in.
All right. All right. Let's just give another round of applause. I think, yeah. I would also like to, because I almost missed it for the first session, but I would like to thank my students that have been working hard all day since I think 8:30. They're live streaming this event for us and doing a really good job. So round of applause for that. We have a few minutes left, and I don't know. I know our panelists probably have places to go, but if they're able to stay for a few minutes, this is just going to be some time. I know the buses will be arriving soon for some of the other schools, but if they have a couple of moments and some students would like to come up and speak, we can certainly do that. I'm sure photos might be something. I think Roz has stuff to give away.
I have prizes.
Yeah. So thank you all very much.
Main
And
South, you have 5 minutes before the bus leaves.
I don't like chocolate.